Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Hospitable Host podcast. This is actually our final episode of 2023, and I have the pleasure today of being joined by our CEO and founder, Pierre-Camille, for a special wrap-up edition, looking back at what happened in 2023 for Hospitable and the industry, and what PC's predictions are for 2024. So we also have some special guest appearances from some of our team members as well. Pierre, I hope you're looking forward to today.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this podcast recording, the questions from the team. We also asked to investors and customers, I'm very excited to hear their questions and hopefully answer them the best way I can.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it too. I have not heard his answers yet, folks, so it's all revealing and interesting for me too. So let's start with just kind of talking about 2023 as a bit of a recap. So we've had a really big year with Hospitable. Just looking at the number of messages that we've automated for hosts in the past year alone, slightly over 12.8 million, which is a massive number. We've had a 33% increase in total subscribers versus the end of 2022. For direct bookings, we've had a total of 2.92 million in reservations from hosts. And the industry as a whole has seen some big changes. We've obviously been the first in the industry to integrate with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT has really pushed the adoption of AI across the industry. We've really had some big up and down news around the collapse of Airbnb, air quotes for anyone not watching on the video. And we've also seen a big increase in regulations in the short-term rental industry, partially thanks to affordable housing issues. We've also seen a big increase in VC funding in the vacation rental software industry. So lots of changes to definitely dig into and talk about today. Pierre, my first question for you, though, is looking back at 2023, what's been the hardest challenge for our business, and what has that had to overcome in 2023?
Yeah, starting already with the worst of 2023. I think the biggest challenge that we've had, and we still have, is on the support side of things. Obviously, we're rather unique in the industry, is that we're a property management software or property ownership software. I would like to dedicate first and foremost to owners, and that means having a rather large customer base that is scaling faster than our resources, especially not only just in numbers, but also in capacity of being able to answer with a high quality and a high confidence on the scope of a product that is forever expanding to a limit. We don't know what the limit, what Hospitable is going to be able to do in 2026 or 7 or in 2050, say. But it's going to be a whole lot more than what we're doing today, that's for sure. So that's a challenge, is how can we support our customer better over time because they have growing expectations while a product becomes more complex. And we also don't want to create a behemoth in terms of team size. So we are not spending time updating matrices and org charts. So we have significantly grown first. That was the urgency, though. There was an urgency. So we have grown the headcount. I think we had a team of 14 people in January. It's now upward of 27, 25. So that represents basically half of the company. As it is today. So that's a gigantic effort that I think is not exactly seen elsewhere in the industry, to have half of the company that is there to directly interface with customers and to answer their questions, onboarding, or solve their issues as part of the product. And I think it's really been a good pulse of our own growth in customers and also the expansion of our product. We're not there yet. I don't think we'll ever be there. We just need to work internally on making sure that our team is growing in competence, in response time. So basically, there is a big difference between doing a B2B company and operating a business to consumers or business to prosumers, I think is our case. The expectation and response time are vastly different. You can go back to a business within 1 day and it's a fantastic experience. You can go back to a customer within an hour and it's absolutely it's too late. It's too late by 56 minutes at best. So we have plans, we have ideas. We actually keep on iterating on those considerations. So first of all, we are we are going to redo our App Center so that it's become more helpful for our customers. We're investing heavily into the AI experience for our own support capacity. We see that as something that we have to do really well because we want to be an AI first product, not just for the way of support, but also as our own product and the experience that we want to deliver to our customers. Our objective is that within the next 6 months, we'll be able to go back to a live chat experience that's going to be sustainable and consistent. I think we're greatly positioned to exceed that in terms of timeline with the balance of tools that we have at our disposal, so App Center, AI, to deflect some of the easier questions, and then basically allocating immediately dual conversation to the person that's the most suitable for answering it and closing it as fast as possible. We're not looking at just the communication and the back and forth, but really bringing those issues to a resolution. So we've taken a bit of a few lessons during the year, and now, we know what the problems are, and so we've been consistently pushing for solving those over time.
Okay, excellent. So that's the hardest question out of the way, I think, so you can breathe easy now, relax. Looking back at 2023 also, what's the thing that you're proudest of at Hospitable?
Yeah. Can you imagine that in January we didn't have direct? We didn't process a single direct booking, and now we're looking at 3 million, and the year is not over just yet. We expect to see a lot more reservation in the coming weeks because New Year's Eve and Christmas, in both not in Europe, America, and also in Australia, where we have also launched our product Direct Premium. So it's it was fantastic. We've been talking about processing direct bookings since 2020. That's really what our story was. We never wanted to do any direct bookings before because we thought it would be competing with the OTAs, who are giving us so much data to work on to build a messaging product. Then 2020 happened, and obviously everybody was upset about the behavior of some OTAs. So we thought, let's move and create a direct booking website. And then scratching the surface of it, realizing that the problem has never been about websites or an online presence. You obviously have many ways to do that don't require software like ours to work on. But where we can add value is really having this bundled experience where you can have a turnkey, almost a private OTA that's literally launching on your behalf, where you're going to own the relationship with your customer directly. There's not going to be another third party that's going to be involved, interfere, cancel your reservation or manage your cancellation policies or change the deal over time. You own your relationship with the customer, but streamlining everything that we always identified as a liability, which is the payment experience that you need, especially on travel and hospitality, where you have such a high rate of chargebacks and cancellations. The tax compliance piece, that's so extremely complicated because it's hyper local. The insurance, the guest verification part, we are not an Airbnb. We don't have network effects to vet your guests, so we need to find a way to make it work on a one-to-one basis. So for every guest that is booking a stay, we need to make sure that we would be okay to host them ourselves. And if there is something happening, that I want you to sleep easy, not have the stress of thinking if there is something that's happening, I don't have any support to call. I don't have any insurance that I can basically call. No, on Hospitable, you actually can. And that's something that's rather unique, which provides basically an ease of use. You can work on the design, the templates of your website, and you don't have to be aware almost of all the complexity that goes behind the scenes. And that's really a host-first experience that's really unique in the industry. We need to do a lot of work to educate the industry about the fact that exists, that's actually working, where you can have this setup where you are in charge of the marketing, you're in charge of your brand, you have full liberty and freedom on that, but you don't have to bear the gigantic costs that come with creating all those operational workflows behind the scenes. And then we had a lot of surprises as well. How does it work really in terms of direct bookings? And because of the hypothesis that we first started into direct bookings with the idea that it would be a product that at least can work for extensions, so alterations of the state that are staying, guests that are staying a little bit longer, or returning guests, which is not null, but not really what we've seen. And what we've seen that there are very educated guests that are looking for the name of listing on Google, and obviously if they have a direct booking website with the same listing name as you have, then they are going to book on direct because it's always going to be cheaper than paying the gigantic service fees that the OTAs are going to charge your guests directly. And we heard from customers, especially when we were launching, that there was very pleasant surprises. I launched a website, and then within 24 hours, I'm getting a booking. What's happening? Have I been hacked? Are you the guys that are booking my place behind the scenes? And no, not really. We have plenty of things on our plate. But that was a bit of a funny experience because it didn't happen just once. It happens really quite consistently across the customer base. So people are looking for your direct booking website. You don't really have to invest that much in marketing, and that means greater returns, obviously, for hosts deciding to commit to that channel.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So looking ahead to 2024, and just a couple of questions now before we get onto some questions from the team. What is the most significant industry change for property owners you expect to see in the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to be a person to trust on my predictions. It would be really bad. But I want to say that there is, where I'm concerned about is not really about the travel and hospitality market. I see that still growing. I think I don't identify a particular problem or opportunity that I would expect at this point in time. We can talk about something else a bit later. But what I think is particularly affecting and obviously more existential is about what's happening on the underlying market, which is real estate. And so obviously people have been acquiring properties in 2019, 2020 at rather inflated prices in the United States. It was hard to be a value investor then. I started operating the business, and what I'm afraid of is seeing a lot of owners capitulating, realizing obviously that renting on short-term rentals is not exactly a passive income. You have to invest yourself into it. Managing the oversupply in some very competitive markets and not adjusting to it. Also added to obviously hyperinflation. We're far from it luckily, but still very high inflation, rising costs for everything. So what I'm afraid of is owners capitulating, deciding to sell, sometimes at a loss. There are plenty of accounts now on Twitter or X that basically are showing examples of listings of real estate properties, sometimes with owners taking very significant loss of 1/3 of the price that they bought the property in 2021. And that's something that the industry has to look at a bit cautiously, like what's going to happen, because it has an impact on livelihoods and the entire economics of running a short-term rental. I would struggle to say that this is completely bad, though, is in that there have been quite a few people in the industry pretending like it would be easy. Truth is coming fast, that it will be very profitable. And here again, it's difficult to defend some investment properties that are having negative cash on cash return, because you cannot extract more money from guests that are visiting properties in a very competitive area, for example, while you're faced with rising costs and a very high interest rate as well. That completely changed the economics. So that's one thing that I believe, I hope is not going to be an industry change. I hope this is just basically something for the end of the year and in the past few months. But that could become a bit of a complication for the real estate market. That may become an opportunity for the established operators, for the people that are able to run their properties and are not like taking a leap of faith into getting an investment property worth several hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and not being serious at operating not being serious at operating that unit, and delivering a great guest experience. So with guests that are willing to return back to those locations.
Mm-hmm. You kind of touched on this with one of your other answers, I believe, but what about for Hospitable? and what are our challenges in 2024?
Yeah, so our business is always about bringing some technology into owners, which are probably the ones that don't really have a fighting chance compared with other property managers or large operators that can basically have their own dedicated IT teams. Obviously, we've all been very excited during 2023 about everything AI. ChatGPT was launched in November 2022. Obviously, that was the year of AI, if there is any. And then it flopped. It was all the hype, and then everybody started realizing, it actually does. It won't help me. It can help me do, specific tasks that I can train it for, and there is a lot of prompt engineering to do behind the scenes, but it won't solve all my life problems just yet. If it has, please send. If it has solved your life problems,
please send help.
I'm really please send. Get something out. But so that's one thing. Now we are in a bigger challenge, which is really was well put by one company, Mistral AI, which is how do we make it useful? The technology is there. How do we make it really genuinely useful and accessible to the masses? ChatGPT is one thing, but if you need to spend 20 minutes doing the prompt engineering to get the thing that you're looking for done, that's going to be very much a drain and a barrier for the adoption. So we have plenty of ideas of things we can do. We're battling internally on making sure that we have the resources and develop those with as much urgency as we can. But what we believe is that it's an opportunity to change completely our specific product, and I think that's going to be changing the industry, not like overnight, but really facilitating the user experience, so that we know we can brief the AI on specifically knowing what to answer based on the specific context, on the history. And when I mean context, it's everything that we can think of in your area. So really pushing a lot of real-time data on the models to make sure that we can craft the best answer with as limited effort on your side. So ideally, we don't want you to press a button to suggest a reply. We want you to say, yes, this is a good reply. So it's even less of one touch and one less cognitive load in interfacing with your guest, but also a gigantic opportunity for the guest experience. We've built a software so that you never have to send the same message over and over again to the same guest. I think with AI, we can really go one level lower and really make sure that every message is really personalized to the experience, to their state, to their context themselves, so that no two messages are the same. Right now, what things that is working great is that you can send check-in instructions. What we love to do is basically adjust it so that if somebody is coming to a funeral, it's not going to be the same message as somebody that's coming here for a wedding. We have the ability, obviously, to adjust those manually, but I think there is an opportunity to relate to people as humans in their experience. Or coming on a trip with family, let's go suggest a few things that the people can do in the neighborhood. And ideally, all of that, we strongly believe we can do with very little lift from host. Our mission remains gifting hosts their time back. The idea is zero setup, zero prompt, zero clicks to achieve that for most of our users, for all of our users.
Of course. So now we're going to segue into some questions from the team.
Hey, Pierre, I have a question for you. Airbnb has had a lot of recent updates for hosts, things like smart locks and just more host-centered features in general. How do you think this will affect the role of the PMS and affect the industry as a whole?
Hey, Pierre. My question is Airbnb following the Facebook platform playbook, where platforms start open, winning features are integrated into the core product, and third parties have ever smaller opportunities?
So thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Andrew, for your questions. Those are very good ones. I think for a company like Hospitable, you can see booking platform updates with a bit of anxiety. Like, are they going to replace us completely? Am I going to have to update my CV? And I want to go back to whenever Airbnb released their messaging automation, and we thought, that's it. We're done. There is no point of trying to address 80% of the market for that one feature when literally Airbnb is going to be able to do it. And that's never been quite right, because the signal, what it said was really that before that time, we had objections for setting up a trial or launching a messaging rollback because Airbnb is not okay with automation. Well, it turns out now they're very, very okay. You can do that within your own product. And it legitimized the value. Like now you can expect that everyone in your neighborhood is going to automate messaging because they believe that there's a product. That's never been quite right. One, because features are not really aligned with the depth of complexity that hosts really want to bring if they get an opportunity for a messaging automation. So you give them a taste of something, but then they don't have the full flavor. So that's where there is always an opportunity for making a product out of what is otherwise a feature in a specific other product. And it expanded the market very significantly for us. Like, it's okay, you can do it. Now you own the experience completely. And obviously you're looking at professionalizing. So you need to have an interface that's going to help you command those different channels. And that's never going to be the time that you spend on Airbnb. You're going to have to respend then again on every other OTA, or Airbnb was actually the last one on messaging automation compared with Variable, Booking.com, or your direct booking website. So at one point, it's better to think a bit ahead of the curve. I think so. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it's only Airbnb doing that, and I think there's something inherently wrong with that. If I may say, Airbnb is doing a great job, which is to Airbnb is doing a great job because they are a technology company, and the culture and the approach to technology is so vastly different at Airbnb compared with any other OTA that exists on the market. They want to own the entire experience for the guest. They want to own the entire experience for the host, and they're committing on a modern user experience that really is like top notch. It's very difficult to find a product that has a better user experience than Airbnb in the first place. They want to create the most user-centric experience, whether it's for guests or for hosts, and that helps them create an exclusive supply on the guest, on the host, on the listing side. You want to go back to Airbnb because it's going to be so much easier, so much more entertaining. You're going to look at great pictures, you're going to look at categories, etc. Airbnb needs to spend a lot of effort to make sure that they don't return just because it's cheaper. And for hosts, it's so simple to manage on Airbnb. Now you can have AI adjusting your pictures, creating the caption. All of that is fantastic. It's going to be so much more complicated to move to another one. Every single OTA should be working on that to create the exclusive supply of listings and create an experience that's very compelling for guests to come back to. So it's rather disappointing to not see others playing that same game, because it forces everyone to up their game in the industry, whether that's going to be OTAs, but also property management software that should not rest on their laurels in the first place. But and going back on the experience that we had with messaging automation, this is a feature that's being launched, but there is very little justification for investing more into it. There is no billion-dollar outcome that's attached to Airbnb developing a single feature. There is a price tag that's going to be the maintenance of that new feature, with a return that's expected to be on the scale of months or years in terms of retention, loss, drop in a cancellation rate. And that's something that happens typically in big companies, and Google is rather famous for that. You create a new product at Google, you can have a gigantic scale on day one. The problem is that it doesn't move the needle. So after a few years, that product is killed because there is no justification. It's just a peanut in an ocean. It doesn't matter. I don't see that at Airbnb, although there were cases like that with co-host payouts that have been retired and come back, and all of that because of, I think, under the hood, some KYC problems and compliance issues in dealing with the payments of such a large number of people. But yeah, this is basically what they release as a new feature is basically the state is going to be like for the next 5 years, as it's been the case for messaging automation on SmartLock. SmartLock is a great opportunity, and everything that's there to help help them create a great product for hosts and guests is fantastic. I also want to give a third kind of example outside of the travel and hospitality industry, and that's exactly the tension that you see between Shopify and Klaviyo. Because Klaviyo went public this year. It's honestly one of the best success company ever. And Klaviyo is basically doing what Hospitable is doing on Shopify. So Shopify is that platform that allows you to create an e-commerce store, online website, and you need to have Klaviyo to manage the marketing with your host, with your customers. Sorry, it's not our industry. And so there really is kind of symbiotic relationship between Shopify and Klaviyo. Shopify is actually a shareholder of Klaviyo. But the thing is, the job of the OTA is going to be to provide a platform of features, and definitely there are going to be new features always to justify. But they have to go also in depth of what is their core skill. There's going to be the website, there's going to be the adoption, the user experience, there's going to be the payment side of things. Whereas Klaviyo can also do exactly the same stuff, which is to go onto the nitty-gritty and bring technologies that would be otherwise challenging because of maintenance issues on the core part of the product. So there is always going to be innovation on other parts. Now, the thing that's interesting is that you have products that integrate with Klaviyo. So you have another third generation of integration from Shopify to Klaviyo to other things. And I think, considering the general law of the universe, there's going to be more complexity, there's going to be more entropy, there's going to be more challenges because technology can also be seen as an arms race. There's always going to be something more to do to deliver more value. And that's the way it should be because it provides more returns to the customers and to the users of any single software product.
Next up, we have a question from Emily on our product team.
As Hospitable grows, do you ever imagine acquiring or merging with another company in the industry?
That's a great question from Emily that I don't think I've had that question very few times because I think nobody is daring asking that, especially think about it when you are in the team. So from investors, VC, private equity, sure. I think it's a bit more challenging to do that internally, but I'm lucky I can give exactly the same answer. Yes, absolutely. It would be idiotic to say, no, I would never consider any kind of M&A transaction with Hospitable. It's been discussed multiple times with other actors in the industry, whether they would be more in competition or alternative suppliers, so creating something more horizontal. It has not materialized yet because it's not exactly obviously top of mind. But I think if you want to have an entrepreneurial approach, you need to think about what would give the business more defensibility and more opportunity to deliver more value to the customers always. You can just do that. At one point, you can no longer just do that by your own development. You need to consolidate and grow externally. So that part is always valid. What is my question mark is who and why, and what is the different advantage that it would give a company like Hospitable and its customers. There are very few companies in the space that are really focused on building for owners in particular. That's 80% of the short-term rental industry, and most vendors are focused on the property managers. So that limits really the opportunity for some kind of horizontal expansion by a very big factor. What I would look at is really, in terms of those kind of operations, is three main kind of direction to have Hospitable be stronger and customers also better equipped to face whatever comes their way. Obviously, it's going to be one axis around AI. Is how can we bring very high quality AI, very useful AI to more customers faster, whether they're guests or hosts. What would help us build a marketplace of service providers that's focused on delivering value to owners faster? And what would help us manage the payment cycles across the entire industry, from the guests down to the cleaning people, the operations, owners, etc., faster? That really would be the three kind of question marks that I would have to consider Hospitable acquiring or merging with another company. Now, there is also another angle, which is getting acquired. is the other side of the transaction. And just for other reasons, we are also a very much smaller fish than most of the alternatives that are competing with us. That's why there is almost always a conversation that's happening in my email about those things. But so far, the answer has always been the same: is that, and unfortunately, the industry has seen some examples of that. As you get acquired by a larger fish, you also become a situation where the business doesn't matter, and there is so much more opportunities as an independent company that Hospitable can tackle, and that I believe can change the industry altogether. So that's so far has been, no, not now. I've so much unfinished business with this company. I'm very happy with what I'm doing as well. So I would like to continue doubling down on what makes us a bit special in the industry.
Another question now from Emily that's kind of linked to that.
How big is too big? So many companies measure themselves based on team size or the size of their latest funding round. But how big is too big in your opinion? And when do you think Hospitable is going to reach the level of growth in team members where adding more team members is just not going to grow the product?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. Again, very difficult to ask from somebody within the team. 100. I want to set a cap, and I've said that internally multiple times. I find it difficult to operate on a company that has more than 100 people in the team. And when you think about that, we're almost halfway there already. It took us 7 years to get there. Obviously, it takes us 12 months. If we want to double the company to 100, that's going to be there. And move it to 18, and you get 200 people all of a sudden. There are examples of companies that have achieved a very significant scale with a company, a number of employees of that magnitude. What I'm thinking about is in particular is Expensify. It's 140 people, and they get basically 1 million per employee, 1 million revenue per employee. So really an inspiring example that's completely anti-Silicon Valley about increasing your headcount to create a meaningful company. So revenue per employee is also a very good metric to be looking at. The 100 is basically enough to basically still create a company where more or less everyone in the company. There are colleagues that you would work on. There may be some politics, but it still remains at a very low level. Everything becomes a little bit easier, and everyone has a certain sense of urgency about developing the next thing. There was another part of the question which was not also about headcount, but obviously about funding rounds. And I think obviously that's also a rant that I'm having once in a while. It just we're dealing obviously with customers who are very operationally driven that rarely have access to third-party VC funding except by looking to debt. So obviously every owner has heard about a mortgage before, and it's just very easy to proxy an amount being raised for the success of the company. No founder has ever thought this way. It's just a liability. It's depending on the structure of the round, but it's the liability because all of a sudden you need to grow to that amount. And if you don't make it, if you're not going to be profitable or increase your economic and financial situation over time, you are not going to get the next round. So that's why 50% of VC-backed businesses, I think it's actually more than 50%, fail completely. And VCs would accept a write-off just as easily as they would accept a $1 billion company, a unicorn valuation. It's that kind of a Boolean strategy. So we've been bootstrapped, operating as bootstrapped in the past few years because we still receive funding from our customers. It's not something that's changing particularly the trajectory of the company. But it's something always weird to look at is that how much, obviously, in the space in particular, a lot of founders have a chance to cash out after some time, and you have private equity buying 90% of the company. It's not an investment round here at this point. It's obviously something that's going to be going straight into the real estate market of wherever the founders are located. So the thing also when I think about that particular dimension as well is it needs to be very appealing to be investing into Hospitable, which I believe greatly it now is, and it needs to be a company where you know what people are doing on their exec chart. There's another meme talking about headcount. So Expensify, 140 people, creating $1 billion company that's public. I think it's one of the smallest public company ever on the Nasdaq. And you have another example with DocuSign. So that's an e-signature product. When you check on Twitter, they often say 25,000 employees. You wonder what those guys are doing. There's actually 7,000 employees in DocuSign. It's still, you still kind of wonder what are those people really doing. They're just basically purely selling a product that has not changed since the past decade.
Okay. Next up, we have a question from our Director of Engineering, Sam.
Hey, Sam from sunny Bolton in the United Kingdom. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Transparency is the core of almost everything we do at Hospitable. Internally, how we communicate day to day. And externally as well, we hold these incredible town halls for anybody to listen and join in with. So my question to PC is, how will transparency continue to play a part in the coming years as we grow? And what other company values are you most relying on to make Hospitable even more successful than it is today? Maybe including any new ones that we might not have defined yet.
Hey, Sam, thank you for that question. Obviously, we want to be a bit separated in transparency. For me, transparency is not a value. It's really an operating mode. Is something that you commit yourself to do, even though you're not obliged to do it, so that there is ideally a gain that results from it. So it's all opportunistic. It's not a penalty. It's an opportunity to be asking for help. We have a problem in tax remittance in one state in the US. We can talk about that on a town hall and engage with the customers directly. And you cannot believe how many times that has helped. So it gets us into introductions with other industry leaders. It helps us solve a problem very specifically and very narrowly, because we can all of a sudden rely on the talent of our own customer base. So that's something that gobsmacks me every time I hear about it. But yeah, our core values are humble, simple, caring, and democratic. So it's all coming. Transparency is a blend, an illustration of those values. You cannot be transparent and then brag about how amazing you are. There is really no point. we are a small company. It's like we are $8 million ARR. There are plenty of companies that basically could do 80, and you don't hear about them at all. So it's one factor, but it's about educating everyone and lifting everyone to be growing this company together. If you do stay on your own silo, not telling the story and the success or the failures that you're meeting, that's going to be very challenging to make it a better product and to not sell BS at scale to your customers, because obviously your customers are smart and they can really tell when something is not legit and when something is turning to be, especially because they are real estate investors themselves, and they are not going to be. They can smell when there is a bad deal. We don't want to be one, but we're going to put it out there anyway. It's really more of a. It's also a governance principle. Is company is doing a lot better when everybody knows how much is getting paid. The CEO is not going to get 100K out of the bank accounts, because the CEO is not going to get 100K out of the bank account in a private fashion, because everyone can actually access the bank accounts and can see that there is a transaction that's a little bit off. So that's a level of transparency that we're having. It's also, like, when is the right time to get worried? When is not the right time to get worried? So that kind of describes especially my commitments around transparency. What is particularly interesting as we keep on growing is, one, keeping things simple, and two, build it in a democratic fashion. There's again, I've talked the second time I'm talking about entropy, but as this business grows, my role is changing every 6 months, and now I'm dealing with things that honestly I could never have contemplated when I started this from my bed and coding at ungodly hours in the night. I'm talking about implementing NetSuite. Like, if that's a word that or if you're listening to the podcast, I fear for you. Something was broken, and I'm really trying to run away from this. That's the level where we act stupidly, and that's kind of what I spend my day on. So it's a bit ridiculous. So entropy is going to win all the time, but we have a fighting chance if we address it and acknowledge it, but at the same time, think about how we can be just that little bit simpler. We have more resources available for us. We could make it boring to be running the company on a day-to-day basis. I'm saying boring, it's often very much a trigger word in the company. It's just the normal day-to-day should be as simple, as automated, as easy to understand as possible, because it's just the day-to-day. We don't have an opportunity for growing or building something if we are not managing the day-to-day and making it be quiet. But the other part, especially becoming more leader than the manager, is really I've built it in a democratic fashion. My thoughts shared with the managers can be 100 miles, 200, 300 miles an hour. It can be very fast, very high intensity. But it's very important that everybody in the team know that it's what's happening, why it's happening. That's always a challenge, in larger teams already at 50 people, to build that engagement and to convey the context around some important decision in the company. Some people will be very happy just supporting customers and just pushing some code, but they need to understand they still need to understand, because that's going to impact them one way or another. That's going to impact our opportunities. That's going to dictate our roadmap. That's going to dictate how we allocate resources in the long run and sometimes in the very short term. So we have those weekly meetings. So some companies have all hands every month, and it's boring because it's the same thing, and you can kind of play bingo on what the executives of the company are going to tell you every week. Correct me, Miles, but I don't think that's true. I think there's always something new and a bit surprising, a lesson that was learned, a fuck up that happened that we didn't really anticipate. I always try to make it a bit entertaining, and I think definitely across the board, there's so many things to be talking about that it's rather inspiring, and it's basically lifting everyone. But there is a lot happening, and I think we're at the stage where there is a bit of fatigue and overwhelm about what's happening across the board, because of product and engineering, because of the war that support is fighting within itself, and still working on sales, on single sales marketing, and building the next bridge for the next 6 months. So that's a very tricky situation that a company is, but that's the same for every other.
And then we've got one final question here.
If you decided to purchase a short-term rental anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Tenerife. I don't have a choice. I'm compelled to give you that answer. That's something I'm looking forward to. So I've started Airbnb here in Brussels with my rentals, with my own rental as my own flat. That got shut down. It was a particular point in time. Now, if I get the chance of actually becoming a property owner myself, because surprise, I'm not. It has to be Tenerife. We've been going there with my family together for a few years now. It's basically fantastic weather. It's a fantastic island. It's really a corner of paradise. I'm still, looking at real estate there a bit with an eagle eye. Is like, how can you actually make it in a profitable fashion? We won't, I don't think we will be relocating ourselves to Tenerife anytime soon. So it's kind of interesting I'm very much looking forward at being on the other side and operating a business in a remote fashion. I think the team would also be pretty excited because they will be able to test everything on my account. But no, that's where I would love to be. I would love to purchase or build a short-term rental.
Awesome. Sounds good. Next company retreat in Tenerife then, potentially.
Again.
True. Before my time.
That's fine. It's a fantastic place, a magical place.
Cool, excellent. So that's the end of the questions, Pierre. I hope you've enjoyed the session today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miles, for moderating this session, and thank you so much for Emily, for Sam, Andrew, and Kevin for asking the questions. I'm very excited for what's coming for Hospitable users, hosts, and guests in 2024. We have the resources to double down on our product on the part that matter, and hopefully working on all parts of the experience, including support and all the content that we can do to help you manage your short-term rental just a little bit better, building a community in the process.